This is the Five Nights at Freddy's cut content iceberg. Cut content usually refers to any content that was created for a specific media but was removed, scrapped, or in our case, left in the game unused upon release. In its early years, being created by one guy, FNaF doesn't have a whole lot of cut content from the first couple of games, but what there is has become some of the most well-known cut video game content ever. Everything is marked, like always, so you can take a look. I hope you'll enjoy. Let's get into layer 1. Lives is a cut feature present in an early build of the first game, giving you a limit on how many times you could die before supposedly having to restart from the very first night. It got as far as appearing in an early gameplay video posted by the game's creator, but for whatever reason before the release, this feature got cut. I'm gonna assume for the sake of difficulty, as back then even 420 was considered to be literally impossible, a lot of people probably would have given up having to sit through 4 almost 10-minute nights just to get sent back to the first night after dying 3 times. In the old video, bro literally only has 1 life at night 5. And he made the damn game, so probably a good call from him, but when removing this feature from the game, there still remain 2 graphics referencing the feature. One an image with the text lives, and the other a tiny guy shown as the icon in Scott's gameplay video. Something that I think is pretty interesting about it though, is that it wasn't only present in the first game, but in the files of the second and third FNaF games, you could find both of these graphics in there as well. They're completely unchanged from each game, which is most likely a sign of it just being left over from copying the game to make a new one, though you never know. Maybe it was planned for all 3 and just never made it in. The toxic meter was another removed mechanic, this time for the second game. This meter was to fill up the longer you kept the Freddy mask on in order to stop you from just putting it on and sitting in the office the entire night. This was obviously made before both Withered Foxy and the marionettes mechanics were implemented. In the game now, both Withered Foxy being immune to the mask and needing to go into the cameras and wind up the music box are the alternatives he ended up coming up with to stop you from hiding the whole night. He even said in his first interview with Dawko that it felt a bit too artificial, and I think everyone would completely agree with that.
It didn't make quite as much sense. And so then the way that I solved it was, obviously having the need to go and wind the music box every once in a while, and the fact that, Foxy was immune to the mask. So I came up with other ways that felt a little more natural than just putting on the mask and seeing a meter deplete. Like, oh, okay, I can only wear this for 5 seconds. It seemed a little too artificial.
Pretty much the same thing with the lives counter. A graphic with an empty bar with the word toxic at the top was found in the files of the game after its release. Pretty self-explanatory. Security Breach is notorious for cut content, a large chunk of it being unused minigames. One of these 4 minigames is Bonnie Bowl, which can be found as a very bare-bones bowling minigame in the files. It's completely coded and playable with a scoring system and even having graphics when throwing a gutter ball or getting a spare or strike. Probably cut very early into development, judging by how little polish there is and how scuffed throwing the ball is. Another was the arcade cabinet called Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which was another maybe even more stripped down minigame which shows Chica shooting projectiles at unidentified colorful circles. Something pretty interesting is that though you can only see it from top down, it is modeled entirely 3-dimensional, meaning going into free cam lets you fly around the whole game. Pretty cool. Upon release, it was actually entirely playable, just not accessible by normal means. And it seemed to be in a lot more of a polished state than earlier before that was found. That's because this is one of the rare cases that we do actually see cut content of a FNaF game being finished and released. As in the Ruin DLC to Security Breach, this minigame would be completely playable and a part of the main game. Unlike the last one, the minigame that was to be made for Roxy's Raceway never saw the light of day at all. In the files of Security Breach, there are graphics that remain for the Roxy's Raceway minigame, including a fully modeled and functional go-kart. It's unknown exactly what this mission would be, but it would have been the transition right before Roxy's decommission cutscene. Another thing to note about the go-kart is that running into any of the animatronics with it will cause them to ragdoll, so possibly that had something to do with the minigame or just something with Unreal Engine. The final unused minigame, and I say unused with huge quotes because this isn't an unused minigame, rather an unused portion of an existing minigame, that being Monty's Golf Arcade. Normally only 9 holes are playable in the final version of this game, but there were actually a total of 18 that were originally created and intended to be added. I'm not going to go over all of them individually as they aren't really anything too insane, but you can see them playing in the background here. It's unknown why these holes were removed in specific or why any of these minigames were removed as a matter of fact, but it was most likely due to some time constraints or the scale of the game being too large to manage, because as you'll see as we go deeper, there are lots and lots of other Security Breach entries. Active 3/Animation 12, or more widely known as Stare, is this unused frame of the three main animatronics of FNaF 1 staring directly into the camera that can still be found in the files of the fully released game. This frame in specific has become the center of a lot of cases of the Mandela effect, with people claiming that they had for sure seen this frame before used in the actual game, while it has no actual way to be found or triggered. It hasn't been confirmed whether or not it was actually ever intended to be used in the game either, as it does actually appear in the FNaF trailer, but nowhere else. Bonnie in the FNaF 1 trailer and in the full release of the game have a couple slight differences. The first one being the way, instead of as Foxy does, Bonnie is shown running down the left hallway. The second is this scene of Bonnie taking off his mask to reveal an endoskeleton head, which, by the way, is one of 2 times this is seen in pre-release material for FNaF. While the whole taking off his head thing was never explained, most likely just to make the trailer scarier, the reason you see Bonnie running down the hall instead of Foxy was because Scott wanted Foxy to be a complete surprise for players who were playing the game blindly for the first time. Though I wonder if it was ever considered for that to actually be Bonnie's mechanic. Before the release of Sister Location, the voice of Funtime Freddy was originally supposed to have a German accent. Because of that, some of the unused lines recorded by Kellen Goff as Funtime Freddy can be heard with a German accent.
Hello, little children! Glad to see you back again! Come closer, I'll sing a song for you!
I honestly could not imagine if the voice of Funtime Freddy was German, but as it stands, I'd say I'm pretty happy with the voice he has now. Imagine trying to do 1020 mode hearing a German bear screaming into your ears nonstop. Everyone knows about the infamous locked box at the end of FNaF 4. Before Scott left it locked and just about untouched ever since its release, it was originally planned for the box to be unlocked upon beating the game's 420 mode. The ending in its entirety is pretty much the same as it is in the final version, only this time the player would be able to click on each of the locks to unlock the box. Only before the infamous "perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now" shows up before fading to black. It's unknown why Scott decided to leave the box closed, but it seems like people have much more recent things to theorize about, so I don't blame him just letting it fade into obscurity. This isn't the last time this shows up though, and you will see it later down in the Iceberg. During the demo and initial release of FNaF World, the graphics looked a bit different than it does today. Instead of the top-down 3D style, it was in almost the same style as the minigames Scott made for other FNaF games. Later on though, version 1.1 would release on February 9th, 2016, which added many small features and improvements to the game, as well as a massive graphical overhaul, changing the style from the original 8-bit to the more modern 3D style everyone knows now. Something I noticed when researching this though is, in the original version of the trailer that has since been deleted, it shows the current 3D landscape, while the trailer that is out today shows it in 8-bit, as it was on release. My theory is Scott had originally intended to make the entire game in 3D, but wanting to release it sooner, switched to a simpler style to make development quicker and easier for release, before eventually updating the game later on when he had more time to complete it. I personally prefer the 8-bit style more, but I do think the 3D style makes it look a lot more polished, and I doubt the game would have been as popular as it is today if it had stayed the same style. On top of that, it didn't really affect the gameplay a whole lot, so I'm sure most fans would know most, if not all, of the first layer, but as we get deeper, I am 1000% sure there's going to be a lot of stuff you've never heard of or seen before. I don't think I mentioned it in the intro, but there are almost 80 entries on this iceberg, so you better get comfortable because we're going to be here for a bit. Here's layer 2. The blacklight animatronics were these neon-looking animatronics that were to replace the original characters in Help Wanted whenever enabling hard mode. These were left completely unused within the game, though their models and fully complete textures for 3 of the 4 characters are present in the files. Since Help Wanted, these animatronics haven't at all been featured in any of the games, only some licensed merchandise. I personally haven't played a whole lot of Help Wanted, so I think the blacklight animatronics are a cool concept, but the replacements complement the darker theme of a hard mode and are just in general scarier than these are, so that could be an idea to why they were scrapped. It is pretty interesting the amount of merchandise there are for these characters when they never actually made any appearance in the games. Might just be the bright colors are good for selling toys, something like that. In the files for sister location, this image of Ballora outside the main control module window with her faceplates open can be found, which was to be used at some point throughout the game upon using a controlled shock on her. There isn't much else when it comes to this, not much information as to when it exactly would have been shown or why it never ended up happening. It's such a cool image though, I can't see why it wasn't used at some point in the game. In FNaF 2, Toy Chica is supposed to approach your office from the left vent. To defend her normally, all you need to do is throw on the mask and wait to hear the vent rustling, then kaboom. This seemingly wasn't always the case though, and an image within the files of the game titled Chica Look at You suggests that similarly to Toy Bonnie, Toy Chica would have entered the office and caused a blackout instead of just leaving the moment you put the mask on. With how annoying and RNG based Toy Bonnie is in FNaF 2, it's probably a good thing there aren't two of them with the same mechanic for the sake of the max mode players. Not the exact sprite, but the same mechanic of Toy Chica causing a blackout was actually seen in UCN, which to me almost seems like Toy Chica's blackout mechanic was intended to be there, but most likely ended up being removed shortly before release. In the files for FNaF 1, what looks like a graphic for a beta version of the FNaF 1 monitor map can be seen. There isn't a whole lot to take from it. This version doesn't have any names for the cameras, just icons, as well as displaying the backstage camera on the opposite side of the room in the final game. And lastly, it shows a more accurate position of where the supply closet camera is. I'm much happier with the simpler monitor map that ended up in the game, as it definitely fits the camera and the static a lot more than this would have. I do wonder if there was an alternate version of what the backstage camera could have looked like though, as the camera buttons in the final game, while slightly off at points, seem to be placed pretty intentionally. Even more so with this beta monitor map, as you can see. And if so, I wonder what other cameras there could have been. In FNaF 1, 2, 3, 4, World, and UCN, left over in the game files are all of these screens and assets that show at the end of the demos, thanking you for playing and encouraging you to purchase the full thing. Well, except for FNaF World, which just has some boxes that would cover up UI elements, and UCN, which had a screen that tells you you can't start a night with more than 2,000 points, most likely to prevent YouTubers from spoiling the game. The demo screens aren't actually anything too crazy, though the FNaF 4 one looks pretty cool. Seems like the only one with any sort of graphic other than just some text on the screen, so that's nice. In the first layer, we covered the original box ending, in which you could click the locks that appeared on the box at the end of FNaF 4. Well, in the game that came directly after that, FNaF World, in the files a never-before-seen graphic of the FNaF 4 box busted wide open, but completely empty was found. The general consensus is that this probably has no lore significance and was just put in the game to troll theorists looking around the game files. This absolutely isn't the first time Scott has done this, and would be nowhere near the last time, as you'll see later on. The FNaF movie has a surprising amount of known cut content, specifically many scenes that either weren't filmed for one reason or another or were removed entirely before release. One of the most well-known being Markiplier's role in the movie, which was originally going to be as the guard in the opening scene who gets strapped to this saw trap ass chair and killed. Due to the filming of his own horror film overlapping with the movie, it never happened. On the topic of YouTubers though, in the scene for Corey Kenshin where he gets jump scared by Balloon Boy, he was supposed to yell out, "What the fuck?" And for obvious reasons, he declined. Though, if the movie was shot today, I'm not sure if that would be the same case. Many scenes of the babysitter Max scene were cut, including an alternate death of her drowning in blue paint, as well as her having a dog named Bonesy. Another popular cut scene is the original ending scene, which wasn't supposed to have Afton sing "I Always Come Back," nor the Springlex in the suit being the cause of death, but instead potentially being hit in the face by Bonnie with his guitar and having Chica's cupcake let loose inside of the suit. Two cutscenes I can't find much info for contain Hank actually being impaled by Bonnie's guitar instead of just being trapped inside the supply closet, as well as a scene where instead of Afton getting Mike's attention by just yelling, Garrett would have ran into the pizzeria with Afton following behind. I'm not too sure if this last one is 100% true, but it's confirmed that there is a scrapped scene showing Garrett at the pizzeria. One of the main differences in the FNaF 4 trailer versus the final game is the jump scare that were shown. More specifically, the sound. And the one we have now The one in the trailer kinda sounds like a mix of the FNaF 3 jump scare, a slowed down version of the FNaF 1 jump scare, and a sort of low roar. I'm not too sure why it was removed from the game. My theory is that it wasn't as abrupt or scary as the rest of the jump scares, and the whole point of this one was for Scott to make this the scariest FNaF game yet. Layer 3. Starting to get into some more unknown cut content, but still some pretty surface level stuff. There's still a lot left, so let's keep going. Survival mode was a mode that was supposed to be playable in the official version of Security Breach, most likely as an extra minigame or bonus section. This is where the vanity meter I mentioned in the Lost Media Iceberg would be used at, as well as a menu that lets you adjust the lives, difficulty, hour length, and a set seed for wherever the objectives are for this mode. And like most other features in Security Breach, a very unfinished but technically playable version was left in the files. Upon starting the mode, you are put into a safe room with Chica and given a few seconds before being immediately killed. Around the Pizzaplex are gift boxes in which you are prompted to go find, as well as spawning map bots who will guard off certain sections like Roxy's Raceway until you acquire party passes from said gift boxes. This is more of a collect stuff and explore rather than a survival type of game mode, as at the end of the night you are given a points breakdown with all of the different gift boxes you collected during the night. Vanessa would be the main enemy of this survival mode, coming out at around 12:10 AM and abiding by that vanity meter, which would fill upon being spotted but deplete upon moving away. Almost nothing in the build within the game works, meaning it's impossible to beat. There are a lot more smaller bits that come with this survival mode, but this is pretty much the general gist of it. Honestly, to me, personally, I like the idea of a survival mode for Security Breach, and I can't understand why, even in the updates or DLCs, it was never implemented. If you want to know more, I will link a specific video on this game mode in the Iceberg, as I personally think this is one of the more interesting aspects of cut content from Security Breach. This refers to a blueprint found in the files of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Sim, showing a Molten Freddy blueprint in the same style as the one shown in the Insanity ending. Despite never actually appearing in the game, it is confirmed to be completely canon, including the part about it containing the most remnants. Again, I really couldn't tell you why this wasn't included. Looks perfectly fine to me. Just like everything else, within the files of FNaF 3, a graphic can be found that was deliberately created for a 7th night, meaning at one point or another there was a 7th night planned, most likely a custom night, before being removed and replaced with just the modifiers that are able to be used in any night. I personally would have loved for there to be a custom night in FNaF 3. A custom night would have been a better fit, but who knows? It's a very lore heavy game, so maybe there's some implications to it. In both the FNaF 1 trailer and the icon used for the Steam Greenlight version of the game, there's an endoskeleton that looks decently similar to the one that shows up in the game today, only with some minor changes. Those being sharp teeth as opposed to the rectangular ones they have now, as well as nostrils, and of course their signature black eyes with red dots in the middle. It isn't abundantly clear why this change was made, but it was most likely due to him thinking it just wasn't scary. I personally like this old design better, but let me know what you think. There are a couple unused jump scares within Help Wanted, first being an unused glitch trap jump scare which was supposed to be used during the merge ending, as well as jump scares for the 4 main withered animatronics and Balloon Boy that was supposed to be used in the Curse of Dreadbear's Trick or Treat minigame. Along with that, the code that the game uses to actually jump scare the player uses a file called jumpscare list, which determines specifically which jump scare to play. In that file, of course, are many that go unused. I'll go over the most interesting ones now, but they're all on screen along with descriptions if you want to pause and take a look. Phantom Temp is presumably an earlier version of Phantom Foxy's jump scare that is apparently just that, but not broken like it is in the full game. Spring Bonnie, when activated, just plays the plush trap jump scare audio with no actual model to accompany it. Phantom Freddy goes unused because in the game, instead of playing his own jump scare, Phantom Freddy will toggle the same broken Phantom Foxy jump scare. Freddles contains 2 Freddles as well as causing a game over. Funtime Foxy, in parentheses fake jump scare, has Funtime Foxy appearing on the screen for half a second while playing the Windows scare sound from FNaF 1. In the files for Security Breach, an unused location called map_character gallery was found. It's pretty much the same as the character gallery found in Help Wanted, fully modeled and functional, just letting you look at all the character models up on the stage. It seems like such a simple and easy feature to implement and lets the players actually appreciate the models. Like, look at the Springtrap model, this shit is insane. They had everything fully made and coded too. Even just as an extra after completing the game, I feel like it could have fit in just fine. Maybe it was to not break immersion or something like that, but we'll never know. There's an unused attack in FNaF World called Toxic Song, which most likely would have worked the same as the other blank song attacks, but inflicted the poison effect. It's believed that this attack would have been given to Phantom Mangle and Springtrap, as the fixed versions of themselves, Funtime Foxy and Spring Bonnie, have the Cosmic Song attack, as well as it being possibly given to Phantom Freddy due to him being a singer. On the topic of him, in an early screenshot posted to IndieDB, Phantom Freddy is seen with the Pizza Wheel 2 attack, while in the final version it's replaced with Escape Key. Through a multitude of interviews, Illumix, the developers of Special Delivery, confirmed that there were many animatronics that they had planned on adding to the game, though for whatever reason were never added, and by its eventual shutdown on March 14, 2024, these are all the characters that had been confirmed, but ended up not being added. Nightmare Freddy, Nightmare Bonnie, Nightmare Chica, Nightmare Foxy, Funtime Foxy, Scrap Baby, Glamrock Freddy, Glamrock Chica, Monty, Roxy, and some unspecified shadow animatronics, which was most likely just Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy. In an early version of the primary control module from Sister Location found in the Extras menu, on both of the vents for Ballora's Gallery and Funtime Auditorium, there are metal bars blocking the way. This to me implies that there were either supposed to be alternative ways for entering those areas, or you just flat out weren't meant to enter them at all. Either way, they were then replaced with vents that actually allow you to enter. Originally, the Fazbear Frights book series was going to be titled Twisted Tales, but most likely due to Disney owning the rights to a book series with the same name, it had to be changed to Fazbear's Frights. I doubt this would have changed a whole lot with the book's contents, but I think Fazbear Frights is a much better name and a reference to the third game, which is my favorite. Congrats, you made it to layer 4, almost halfway there. These layers are probably a bit short at times, that's cause most of the time there isn't an explanation to most of these, but if there are any mistakes or clarifications that I missed, feel free to let me know in the comments. Let's keep going. By the time he had made the main 3 animatronics, he knew he wanted a 4th one off on a separate stage, but had a hard time figuring out exactly what he wanted to put there. Other than a fox, he was also considering a wolf animatronic as well as a beaver animatronic. The beaver animatronic was never added, as Scott didn't want FNaF to have any ties to his previous game Chipper and Sons, where all the main characters were beavers, though I'm not too sure for the wolf one.
Trying to remember all the options that I'd originally was kind of debating between. I mean, one of the contenders was a fox, obviously, which ended up winning. The other one was a wolf. Another one was going to be a beaver, but then later I decided against that because I thought that was too on the nose from Chipper, so I decided against that. But
I wonder what it would have been like to have a wolf in place of Foxy, though I definitely do think the fox was the right choice. In Sister Location, there are 2 unused voice lines for the female voice that plays over the speakers when inside the circus control room. This is the first one.
Glass pressure trigger. Please do not push against the glass.
And was thought to have played during Baby's story Easter egg on night 3 while you're under the desk. Apparently it had a 1 in 10 chance to play every 2 seconds, but could only be played once the player is out from under the desk and while Baby is talking. But since you can't leave until she is done telling her story, it's unable to be triggered. This is the second voice line.
Motion trigger. Technician control.
And was supposed to have a 1 in 5 chance to play every 2 seconds only when the power is out, but triggered during the script in which Hand Unit is introducing you to the circus gallery, which isn't something that happens in the final game. In Security Breach, there was originally planned to be an extras menu containing the previously mentioned survival mode and character gallery, as well as some other interesting options like minigames and office games. Starting from the top, selecting survival mode will open up the survival mode options menu that I talked about not long ago, where you can change the difficulty and lives and all that. Selecting minigames opens up this screen where you can select through the following minigames, as well as some unused options like a Vanny battle and a light test. The buttons for Vanny battle don't work, and the light test just sends you to an unfinished version of the Pizzaplex. Office games will show all of the areas containing bosses and other special events, along with 3 unused ones titled Roxy Racers, which we have a whole section for later on, Endogeddon, which I can't seem to find any info on, and Pizza Sim, which I also can't find any info on, but could either just be the kitchen section in which you have to make a pizza to lure Chica, or an entirely different pizza simulator similar to FFPS. And finally, the character gallery would presumably send you to the character gallery. It's just sad to see how much was planned for Security Breach that just didn't make the cut. That even just one menu can show multiple features of the game that just didn't make it. During the 8-bit minigame portions of FNaF 4, some unused text along with some broken code can be found out of bounds that simply says chapter, meaning that the minigames at some point would have been classified as chapters, and your progress within these chapters could have possibly had some effect on the game, or there could have been possibly a way to allow replaying of these minigames, something like that. Though, like everything else, it was just left out of bounds, unused for no reason. Upon getting jump scared in Sister Location, the game over screen looks something like this. Pretty bland, black with some slight red static and red text that says game over. Well, before release, it was discovered that this photo would have been what the game over screen was, which personally I think is a lot cooler. I've always hated how for FNaF 3 and onwards, Scott kinda just ditched having interesting game over screens and just slapped some text on the screen. In the teaser/reveal image for Nightmare Foxy, as well as his appearance in the FNaF 4 main menu, he appears to have a long snake-like mechanical tongue. While in the actual game, in the closet and in his jump scare, the tongue is nowhere to be found. This is one of the rare cases where we do get an official statement from Scott as to why it was originally added in the first place, but was ultimately scrapped. That being because he simply just didn't think he was scary enough.
No, I took it out because I didn't think it was. Like, it was scary on the teaser. You know, there's something about those long snake-like demonic tongues that they're kind of cool in theory, but they're not really scary in practice. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a monster in a movie, extend out, its long tongue and, snake it around and then me be scared by it. They're just not very scary. So I just took it out.
I honestly have no idea what he's talking about, because personally, as a Foxy enthusiast myself, I think the tongue would add so much to Nightmare Foxy's design. As it stands, he kinda just looks like a bear trap with eyes. That's just me though. I don't get where he's coming from on that one. In many of the mobile ports for FNaF, there existed loading screens when opening the apps, that after 2019, when all the mobile ports were revamped by Click Team, were completely removed. I've only been able to find the loading screens for the first, third, and fourth games, and I'm not sure if there are any more for any of the mobile ports that come for the games afterwards. What makes them very interesting to me is that it seems like the FNaF 3 mobile screen is a completely original render made for it, so it's possible there are more of these out there. So if you have any info on these or any of the other topics I've talked about, you should definitely let me know. There are many unused staff bots found within Security Breach, many of which are made to appear within the unused survival mode and various other mini games mentioned earlier. Those unused bots being an earlier version of the alien staff bot, being fully green instead of having an alien hat, Laserbot, who could have been in place of the instructor bot before its actual addition, a crash dummy staff bot that would have been present within the Roxy's Raceway minigame, which would eventually be replaced by the Drive Assist bot before the entirety of Roxy's Raceway was scrapped. Nannybot is a bot actually present in the game, but heavily damaged whenever being encountered at the end of the sewers. But in the files for the PS4 version of the game, a fixed version of the Nannybot can be found, and the same thing goes for this server server bot and golfing bot, which would have been used for Monty's golf section. There's an unused fry cook bot for the kitchens, a mime bot that would have most likely performed at the daycare theater, a sombrero staff bot that would have delivered food at El Chip's restaurant, and finally an unused usher bot that was shown at PAX West 2023 and has the jacket recovered for it but not the entire model. This is another good example of just how much can be cut out of a game for seemingly no reason, especially when it's coming from a big studio with dozens of people working on it. Another entry coming from Security Breach. In the original game, the entity is this dark blue digital character. Forgive me for not knowing a whole lot, but in the files, a very interesting unused version of the character can be found, revealing a much more grotesque human-like rabbit character was to be used before switching to the newer design. Though I don't know much about the character, I do think the older design looks a lot cooler. Metal Runda Wave refers to the audio played in an unused mechanic for the Easter eggs that appear in FNaF 2. When flashing your camera lights at Endo 02 in either the vents or prize corner, as well as Shadow Freddy in the parts and service room, nothing happens. That's because an unused mechanic that uses the metal run sound for whatever reason is broken in the final version. With the mechanic fixed, if you were to look at either Endo 02 or Shadow Freddy, you would be able to see them, but only for half a second before playing the sound and turning the camera to static.
The secret animatronics weren't meant to be seen for long. That metal clanging noise, that is exclusive to this mechanic and appears nowhere else in this game.
This mechanic is broken due to some lines of code that seem to just be tied to some debugging, but if you'd like to learn more, It's Taken made a short but in-depth video about this feature linked in the Iceberg. Officially halfway there. I do want to mention, since my last videos, I have made a Discord server, so if you want to just hang out, have any video ideas or anything, you can check it out in the description. Let's keep going. Within Security Breach, there is an unused animation for a burn trap showing him brutally falling to the ground and dying. This would have presumably been used at the end of the burn trap boss fight sequence instead of just this fade to black, but was cut for unknown reasons. It definitely wouldn't be the first time we've seen Afton drop to the floor dying in agony. In FNaF 2, there can be found this frame of Toy Chica standing in Party Room 4, while her AI never actually gets her to enter this room at all. Something interesting is for the missing Paper Pal Easter egg, the code that checks whether or not any animatronics are in the room in order to toggle it is actually able to run while Chica is in there. Obviously this can't happen in-game, but most likely hints to this being a change made fairly early on, at least as early as the Paper Pal's Easter egg was created. This refers to another unused frame of an animatronic, this time being a transparent full body render of the puppet. This, along with the name being Puppet in Office, hint towards the puppet possibly being a character more like Foxy from FNaF 1, where you should be watching over him, but if he gets to your door, you can literally just shut it and you'll be fine with little to no repercussion. It might have been an idea to give the puppet their own blackout instead of impending doom, which would be interesting considering what we have now, but looking at FNaF 2's 1020, if the puppet had just a normal blackout you could avoid with the mask, it would look a million times easier than it is now. On top of this frame though, there was actually pathing found of how she would have roamed around the pizzeria. So maybe the puppet was supposed to play a smaller role like Mangle or Balloon Boy, but was upgraded to the big dogs upon noticing the cameras would be just useless. This was a scene that was supposed to play upon pressing a button behind the level select monitor in Help Wanted. Upon pressing it, the curtains would open and the band would start singing an original song made specifically for this. Like everything else on here though, it was left unused. According to Scott himself, he couldn't settle on a voice that quite fit Freddy, leading to the song and the entire sequence being scrapped from the game. The little button gets to stay though. For anyone curious to what it sounds like, I'll play a short clip now.
Well, let's meet the band. My name is Freddy, I'm the singer in the band. Got a hat and a big bow tie. I'm a big brown bear, but don't be scared. I'm a real fun-loving guy.
This Showtime sequence reminds me so much of the FNaF movie. I wonder if that's where the inspiration for it comes. Over the development of UCN having over 50 characters, it's inevitable that some were considered but just never made the cut. Thankfully, during development, Scott would periodically release teasers showing the current rosters of the game. There are a total of 4 of these teasers showing the changes made between each iteration of the roster. Here is the very first edition of the roster that Scott posted. For comparison, UCN now has 50 toggleable animatronics, this version only had 40. Didn't include any of the withered or phantom animatronics besides Golden Freddy, along with Nightmare, Nightmare Yon, Nightmare Bonnie, and Nightmare Balloon Boy not showing up. Nightmare Freddy and the Freddles were originally in separate slots. There was no Old Man Consequences, but for some reason this FNaF World Endo, Funtime Foxy was gone, and finally Trash and the Gang was all split up, along with Ned Bear, Orville, and Molten Freddy missing. There was also originally a Candy Cadet animatronic I so wish made it into the final game, but yeah, that's the original roster, very different to what we have now. Version 2 of the UCN roster fused together Nightmare Freddy and the Freddles along with Trash and the Gang, adding Nightmare and Nightmare Yon in their place. It has well replaced the Adventure Endo with Nightmare Bonnie and Candy Cadet with Withered Chica. Not too many changes, but you can start to see the modern roster already starting to take shape. Something to note is that Scott apparently said that despite their removal, both Candy Cadet and Adventure Endo would appear in the game, with only Candy Cadet actually making any sort of appearance. Version 3 adds another column of characters, increasing the number from 40 to 44, adding Phantom Mangle, Phantom Freddy, Nightmare BB, and him. And finally, version 4 being the roster we have today, adding all of the rest of the cast, Phantom Balloon Boy, Nightmare Bonnie, Old Man Consequences, Funtime Freddy, Ned Bear, and Orville. It's cool to see, though there weren't a whole lot of huge changes, you still get to see from start to beginning how the UCN roster took shape. In an early teaser for FNaF 2 revealing Mangle's design for the upcoming game, pulling aside the curtain in front of them is a hook, just like Foxy. While nowhere in the final game nor on any of their models can a hook be found. This isn't really anything too crazy, I guess it just proves Mangle's not a pirate. Mike refers to this small sprite found within the FNaF 2 files, which is coincidentally the same size as the other click team markers that Scott used for the other animatronics movements. Possibly this could be hinting at a scrapped character or hallucination. Whatever this feature was supposed to be was definitely scrapped very early on in development, as even if this Mike is present in the game, there isn't any code that hints at what it could have been or where it could have been seen at. This is also a pretty small one, but Yellow Bear refers to what Golden Freddy was named in the original Five Nights at Freddy's. This marking the very first time in which a pretty much unnamed character is given a name by the fanbase that eventually becomes canon. This same thing happened with the toy animatronics being referred to in the game as just new animatronics, as well as Springtrap originally just being called Spring Bonnie. Just an interesting fact about one of the first ever animatronics. Within Secret of the Mimic, there is found a synopsis for an unused fourth ending which goes as follows. You override the Mimic using the profile of the inventor himself. Mimic becomes locked in to the inventor's persona. The game ends with the Mimic at his son's grave mourning the loss of his child. I might sound like a fake fan, but I haven't seen more than the first bit of Secret of the Mimic, so I can't really speak on too much of it. But if there was a removed ending for any of the other FNaF games, I'd be geeking out too, so I'm sure there are some people who will be interested in this. Sadly, this ending doesn't seem to really have any development to it, most likely being scrapped pretty early. Crafting is an unused feature that was planned to make an appearance in Special Delivery, allowing you to create plush suits and mods with items collected throughout the game. The items included left and right arms and legs, a torso, and a head that you could collect to craft plush suits, as well as motherboards, logic circuits, sound cards, control units, hard disks, and heat sinks for crafting mods. It isn't known if you could combine different limbs to make custom plush suits or custom mods, but along with this feature would have been a scrapped inventory to collect those mentioned parts. Just like most other things, it was most likely scrapped due to the game's abrupt shutdown. Along with other scrapped collectibles and Security Breach, including a collectible Helpy, there was also found to be a Nightmare Helpy that was also planned, though the uses of both of them are unknown. This isn't anything too crazy either, just interesting to know that there was a Nightmare version of Helpy possibly out there somewhere. On to layer 6. If you've made it this far, I'm gonna assume you're enjoying the video so far, so if you'd like to subscribe, that would be amazing. Not gonna waste any more time. Here's layer 6. In Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, originally you were supposed to be able to manage more than one tycoon room during the daytime sections. The code for it was left unfinished but partially functional, allowing you to navigate through different rooms with the arrows on all sides of your screen and a little mini-map at the bottom right to purchase more. You were even able to upgrade and I would assume place down items in these rooms. It's unknown why this was taken out of the game, probably because there wasn't enough content for the night sequences to equal out having potentially 9 different tycoon rooms. Maybe there was a sandbox or tycoon only mode plan that just never ended up making it in. It would explain why there isn't a custom night either. In the previously mentioned scrapped character gallery for Security Breach, there can be found a model of an endoskeleton with a bunch of ice on it. While some of the body parts can be found in the first office, it in its entirety is left unused. It's referenced in some unused dialogue between Gregory and Glamrock Freddy, revealing that he was supposed to be holding a camera for whatever reason. Hidden Images is a folder within Help Wanted containing images of real animatronics and endoskeletons from Showbiz Pizza. This was supposed to be an Easter egg that would play on the TV at the prize corner after pressing the red button on the exotic Butters basket. Scott had actually gotten the images from the creator of the Showbiz Pizza animatronics himself, but after the fans found these photos and were able to trace them back to the Showbiz Pizza animatronics, Scott had them eventually removed from the game, as he didn't want Five Nights at Freddy's to have any ties with the actual restaurant to avoid people thinking that was what FNaF was based on. He hoped that they would be too obscure, but you can never really underestimate people on the internet with way too much time. In the Happiest Day minigame of FNaF 3, below the map are remnants of an unfinished version of Balloon Boy's Air Adventure, presumably being left there when making a copy of the frame to make the new minigame. Below the map you can find a path of balloons just like the normal minigame, the 3 crying balloon boys and tree like normal as well, but the room with the rainbow balloon for the secret ending now has the platforms replaced by party tables, most likely due to Scott repurposing the platform sprites for the new game. Under Chica's party you can find a similar scene, having the final room of Balloon Boy's Air Adventure just recolored, but in the bottom left 2 squares you can find what looks like a recolored version of the secret portion of Mangle's quest with 5 of whoever these guys are. This in specific raises some questions for me because these guys aren't seen anywhere else in any of the minigames from what I can see, and blue doesn't resonate with the color scheme of any of the animatronics except for one. My schizo theory is that there could have been a minigame planned for the 3 toy animatronics, Mangle to take place of Foxy and Balloon Boy, but Scott decided against it and removed Toy Freddy and Toy Bonnie's minigames in place of Fredbear and Shadow Bonnie's minigames. Honestly, a fair move because I think these 2 minigames are by far the most interesting. In Security Breach, a fully functional elevator can be found. When entering using cheats, you could press the button, which will after a few seconds play elevator music and start shaking your hand a bunch to simulate moving upwards. After a while of the music playing though, the elevator will just disappear into nothing. Clearly before release, this elevator was supposed to lead somewhere. I mean, it's right in the middle of the main lobby, but for whatever reason, just like everything else, it was taken out of the game seemingly for no reason. At this point, it's just starting to get sad seeing potentially how much was planned for this game that was even made but just never finished. In Special Delivery, there are multiple lines within the game titled Fast Facts, which were intended to be used in the game to reveal more of the lore. There were 9 of these found, and admittedly some of them aren't the most interesting, but the ones that are include notes about the Springlock suit, Fredbear's family diner, William Afton adding retractable claws to the animatronics, which is pretty strange because the newest game up to that point was Help Wanted, and by the looks of things, none of them have claws. By far the most popular of these facts, though, has to be the 2 lines possibly confirming the year of FNaF 1, that being 1993. There isn't a whole lot else to it. Due to the game being shut down, we're never really gonna know why they were scrapped, or if there was possibly any more that could reveal anything about the games. There are 2 chips that were made and intended to appear in FNaF World, but just ended up being replaced for one reason or another. The first one is a chip called Slow Start Enemies, which is pretty self-explanatory. It would have slowed the enemies whenever entering a fight, allowing you to attack first. The problem with this was there was already a chip that sped up your team and allowed you to attack first called Quick Start Party, pretty much making it a waste to have since they pretty much do the same thing. Consequently, the Slow Start Enemies chip was removed upon release. The second chip that never made it into the game was called Curse Haunting. The only thing of the chip that exists in the files was an animation made upon collecting the chip. Presumably it would have used haunting on the enemies upon getting into a battle. It's suggested that it was replaced with the Quick Start Party chip I mentioned earlier, which serves a similar role but a bit stronger, but it's not explicitly stated anywhere. This is another one from FNaF World, this time an unused voice line for JJ during the Foxy Fighters minigame in Update 2. Presumably while playing, after Nightmare Chica's plane is shot down, JJ would have said this.
Now I'm going to kick your ass!
Wait, what? I can't say that in the game.
You might be able to tell why Scott didn't end up putting it in the game, but at the same time, why would he have it recorded if not? It definitely fits with the theme of FNaF World and especially Update 2. I just personally think it would have been a good addition, but oh well. If you look at Scott Cawthon's YouTube channel, you'll see the most recent post is the Sister Location trailer. Instead of just being called that, it's instead titled Sister Location Trailer 1, meaning that originally there were meant to be more than one trailer made that just never ended up being posted. Thankfully, we did get an explanation of this from Scott in a Steam post. I'll summarize this quickly. Basically, he intended there to be 2 trailers, though probably because the game was nearly a month from its release date upon posting the first one, he decided he didn't want to spoil any more of the game and to just leave it as a surprise until October 7th, 2016. Sister Location was huge for FNaF, and I think a lot of that was from how little we got officially revealed, scavenging through websites and teasers and the one singular trailer we got for information. I remember people freaking out about possibly seeing the puppet in the reflection of one of them. It definitely added a whole lot to the anticipation, but I do very much so wonder what the second trailer would have been like. You probably already know about the collaboration between Fanta and Five Nights at Freddy's, in which our boy Freddy Fazbear appears on the cans of the orange-flavored Fanta. According to old promotion emails though, that may not have always been the case. In an old promotion graphic, instead of Freddy from the first game, Withered Freddy appears on the orange flavor, with the zero sugar orange flavor having the current design on it. It's unknown why this never actually happened. I personally think it's a fun small change to have a different Freddy for the different version of his flavor, but we'll never know. Second to last layer. This is where the most interesting and most obscure stuff starts to come in, and I hope you've enjoyed it so far because damn, this is long. If you've got any other ideas for icebergs or just anything in general, you can let me know in the comments. I read just about all of them. Let's keep going. Ice Cave refers to an unused song for FNaF World. I put it here because that's what the background music for this layer is going to be. While there is no official Ice Cave area, this might be hinting at a possibly cut area, as there are normal caves as well as a cold snowy area, but no mix of the two. Just an interesting thought though. Very good song. In Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, the way the game tracks what animatronics you have loose in your pizzeria is through MIDs, ranging from 1 to 5. As you know, there are only 4 animatronics that can roam around in the vents. Within the code to actually enable this 5th ID, you have to accept all of the possible ad offers. This could possibly hint at a 5th animatronic somehow centered around the advertisements. This comes from another video from It's Taken Again, linked in the Iceberg. He explained it better and more in depth than I ever could. But as it is, there is nothing else in the files about this 5th character. In the FNaF 2 Custom Night, there is a hidden counter that when setting the first 4 animatronics to 1, 9, 8, and 7, will set it to 1 to activate something, just like it did in the first game to activate the Golden Freddy jump scare upon starting the night. But as everyone knows for this game, that does absolutely nothing. Either this means that there was another 1987 Easter egg planned for the second game, or it's just another leftover when copying over whatever blueprint he used. There are 3 different known enemies removed from FNaF World, 2 coming from the trailer, being this golden mech crab, pretty much entirely the same as the normal mech crab, just with a recolored shell. It's possible to be either an entirely different enemy that was scrapped, or just an early version of the mech crab. Either way, it's unused, so it's here. The other one from the trailer being a robot Fredbear, golden with the purple hat and tie. Like the mech crab, it's pretty similar to the prototype enemy, just with some changes in colors and seemingly animation too. I think it's more likely to have been a completely separate enemy, but it's possible that it was an early version for that enemy as well. For the final character, this one isn't from the trailer, but actually in the game's files, this one being a sprite for a version of Brow Boy, but as a normal enemy as opposed to being a boss. Out of all of them, I think Fredbear Robot looks sick as hell, and I wish it made it into the game. In Help Wanted, originally, to take the place of Glitch Trap as the main antagonist was Spring Bonnie, with models, animations, and even a plushie being found of him, but for whatever reason he was replaced in the final version of the game. My theory is that by this time Scott thought he had been reusing the same characters too much. To be fair, this was 5 years since the original game had been released, so instead he replaced him with a character that is, in theory, pretty much the same. Either way, I honestly would have preferred Spring Bonnie, but I know Glitch Trap is a huge part of the games and lore, so let me know what you think. There are unused versions of all 3 endings in Help Wanted, not having major changes but notable enough ones. The pizza party ending, instead of you just watching Glitch Trap dance around behind the tables, plushes would be sitting at the tables in the crowd watching the player performing on stage. This also apparently containing the cut Showtime song I mentioned previously instead of the FNaF 2 ending theme. In the merge ending, instead of switching to Glitch Trap's POV, the player would instead just be jump scared by him. Most likely just a placeholder or a change because they wanted to spice things up. And for the trapped ending, the door model is now different, now being wooden, as well as using his placeholder model. Wait a second. Upon completion of any ending in FNaF World, some unused and unseen text is found hidden, saying, "Well, congratulations, you beat a fictional monster from a fictional game. Bravo, big deal." I'd imagine this was just a funny Easter egg Scott added to make himself laugh and for people to find when digging through the game. In FNaF 3, as well as the FNaF 3 Troll game released just before, these images of the puppet can be found. I do think this was something intentional from Scott, either because he actually planned on having the puppet appear in the 3rd game, or just to fuck with the community and people digging through the game files, which would very much so explain them being present in the Troll game as well. On the original Kickstarter, as well as the Steam page description for the original Five Nights at Freddy's game, it refers to Freddy not as Freddy Fazbear, but Freddy Bear, meaning that either Freddy was originally supposed to have a longer name, or he still actually does, and just no one knows because everyone just calls him Freddy. This isn't necessarily cut content, but could you imagine calling him Freddy Bear Fazbear? Come on now. Originally, when booting up Help Wanted, a game company by the name of Silver Parasol Games would pop up on the screen, credited as working on the game, though when doing any research of the game company, there was nothing to be found online. Turns out this was actually a fake development company made by both Scott and Steelwool to try and add some more lore to the game, being mentioned as the creator of the Freddy Fazbear virtual experience. Scott had a logo made for the studio, and even wanted to go as far as making an official website for the fake studio, though in the end he decided doing so would be more like outwardly lying about a game studio than just a little secret or some lore in one of his games. Though a while after the release of the game, a mysterious website of the same name would pop up, looking like just about any normal website would for a game development studio, though curiously in the context section of the website would be posted Scott's actual personal phone number. In a post on Reddit, Scott clears things up about Silver Parasol Games and explains that someone who was going to work on the website before it got cancelled was the one who had gotten hold of the logo and presumably made and put up the website. This was presumably also how we got Scott's actual phone number. Today though, this website is gone and has been for quite some time. We are finally here. The last layer. This is where the best of the best stuff is, so if you've watched all the way here, I truly do appreciate it. Let's wrap this up. This one is pretty interesting as it took over 4 years for this effort to be discovered inside of Sister Location. Upon entering to Belora's gallery, holding 1 and 0 on your keyboard at the same time will cause an invisible counter to start ticking up. Upon reaching 5,000, equivalent to about 80 seconds, the screen will turn blue, and upon pressing 1 again, tens of random counters can be seen all over the screen. While they are technically all random, there is a 1 in 100 chance every 10 seconds for all of the numbers to suddenly freeze, and the date at the bottom to set the month and day to a random number, but the year to the same year as the one on whatever device it's running on, plus a number between 1 and 10 added to it to make it seem like a close date. Even creepier than that, this low-pitched voice of Circus Baby will play, saying the numbers 1, 5, 7, and 8 in a random sequence. Some people for some reason think that this might be some Click Team debugging stream, but there's absolutely no way about that, solely judging based off the baby voice lines. Maybe I'll make a video diving deeper into this if there actually is any more to it. Let me know what you think though. After each minigame in FNaF 2, there is an unused string of text hidden that says, "It's him." It is a bit unusual as opposed to it being an image of just some text. This used an actual object inside of ClickTeam. It's unknown what this was for, why it's here, or who it's referring to, as there doesn't seem to be anything else in the game linked to it. For now, we'll never know. Within Help Wanted, a folder can be found for an unused multiplayer mode. Apparently there were other files that confirmed that there was work started on developing a multiplayer mode, but it never really seemed to get very far before being scrapped. I really wonder how they would have implemented a multiplayer mode to a game like this. Maybe something like Rec Room, where you and a friend are placed into the same levels together. I wish we could have seen how it turned out, and it probably would have extended the replayability of Help Wanted a ton. I mean, I bought an Oculus with Help Wanted like 3 years ago and I barely touched it since. It would have given people a lot more reason to come back. In Special Delivery, added in 2022 in the files, there are multiple images and some information found for a VIP subscription service that would have cost real money every month. This would have most likely given the player Faz coins, scrap, remnant, and lures, most likely in an XP system or by completing certain tasks. This was never added due to prioritizing other updates and bug fixes, and thankfully to some, this was never added in the end. I know a lot of people criticize Special Delivery for the amount of microtransactions there are in the game, just like any other mobile game, and I think adding a subscription service would not have helped their case in trying to win over fans, though I'm sure there would still be some AR players who would have loved more content in the game regardless of it being paid. A user on Reddit was installing the Curse of Dreadbear DLC for Help Wanted. When watching the download, he realized that on top of the DLC, it would automatically install a large update immediately afterwards. Being curious, he paused the download and attempted to open the DLC, to which it somehow actually worked. Upon loading in, instead of seeing the Curse of Dreadbear graphic, it instead displayed a scrapped version reading Rise of Frank and Freddy. Actually getting into the game reveals pretty much about what you'd expect. Some missing games, as well as some placeholder names and images. The Afraid of the Dark section is decently normal with some placeholder photos and apparently a Pirates ride that's too similar to the Toy Story ride at Disney World, as well as a corn maze which was too unfinished and buggy that it didn't seem to be possible. The Spooky Mansion being pretty much exactly the same but glitchier, and the hallway level being named Hallway Crawl. The last Danger Keep Out section having a different Helpy icon as well as being titled Office Placeholder Name, which apparently featured more levels than in the final release, though sadly due to the user discovering it only having 25 minutes to record, many of the other early levels are unknown. This seems to be a rare case of gut content that seemingly no one has talked about. I can only find 2 actual videos containing information about it, but if anyone out there has the game on PS4 and wants to try and figure it out, I would love to see it. There are a few covers from FNaF books that were intended to be official, but were changed for one reason or another. One of them being the Freddy files, where instead of having a stack of photos including Freddy, the newspaper, and the original 3 animatronics from FNaF 1 along with Nightmare Fredbear, it was a drawn picture of withered Freddy standing over you. It's unknown why this one was changed, but we do have an explanation for this next one, which is the original cover for The Cliffs, which was originally titled The Breaking Wheel and had this as the original cover. It was originally rumored that this was changed along with the title due to the story being too gruesome, but in a Reddit post not too long after, Scott clarified it was actually because he thought the cover art would be too scary. To be honest, considering these books are popular enough to be in like elementary schools at this point, I completely understand what Scott's saying, but the cover still looks sick as hell, I can't lie. In the ending cutscene of FNAF's sister location, an unused smiley face can be found out of bounds. Look at how happy he is. This was most likely used as a placeholder for the shadow in the mirror to gauge how tall the character would have been, but I think it would have been a whole lot better to give him a smiley face as well. There are 2 videos hidden within Security Breach, one titled blank_placeholder and Roxy_boss, both being the exact same video with the text placeholder cutscene on top of a black and blue gradient background. Both of these videos are exactly 30 seconds long and with the song Gimme 5 by Twin Music Calm playing in the background. It's pretty self-explanatory what these were in the game for, it's just interesting seeing that there was most definitely a Roxy boss planned for the game. In May of 2024, the voice actor for Pigpatch in UCN, Chris McCullough, previewed an unused Pigpatch voice line which I'll play for you right now.
Have you begun to realize yet where you are yet? And who I am? Or are you still so delirious and confused that you still think you're a night guard? You'll understand. And even if you don't, it doesn't matter to me either way.
It's assumed this was removed from the game as it would imply Mike was the one that you play as in UCN instead of William, though it isn't exactly stated why it wasn't used at all. All we can really do is speculate. In the most ominous ending of FNaF World, that being the drowning ending, hidden text can be found out of frame with nothing but happiest day on it. It isn't known why it's here, if there's any significance to it, or if it's even supposed to be here at all. For all the lore people out there, if there's any connection between the two games, please let me know. I am super curious. Holy, we made it to the end of the video. I appreciate you a ton for watching if you made it this far. I have a few things I want to say before the end of the video. I mentioned earlier, but I made a Discord which is open to everyone, and I check all the time, so I would love to see more people in there. But on top of that, I also introduced channel memberships, so you get a shit ton of things, everything you see on the screen here, all for a single $1, the cheapest I can make it. I appreciate the support either way, it's completely optional. If you'd like to see my previous video in which I try beating FNaF twice at the same time, you can click here to watch it. YouTube hasn't really promoted it to anyone, so it would help a ton. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.